Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Scott's Selections. Just to recap quickly what happened yesterday, we got another win in the matchup between Wright State and Wisconsin Green Bay. The line that we got was at 6.5 that we recommended for you, and the line ended up going down to 5.5, but it all didn't matter because Wright State ended up winning by double digits and proved why they're fully capable of defending their title as the Horizon League champions as they go ahead to take on Northern Kentucky in the championship of that league tomorrow, as Drew McDonald hit that remarkable three-point shot against Oakland to give Northern Kentucky the nod to play Wright State in the finals. That win yesterday in the Wright State game brings our record on this program to 4-1 overall, with all the lines at -110. We've gotten a decent amount of profit so far. We'll look to keep it going as the sample size is pretty small. We're only 5 games in, but we will look to keep it going in the future. Before we get to our pick, just to recap some of the events yesterday, a lot of close games, particularly in the conference tournament. You had some really great games between Omaha and IPFW late at night. You also had, was decided by 1 point, you had the Charleston and Northeastern game, which was nuts in that conference, and now Northeastern has the shot to play the regular season champion Hofstra for a shot at an automatic bid. You also have the Wofford and North Carolina Greensboro game, which was nuts, where Wofford went on a run of epic proportions in the second half to even get the cover, let alone the win, to clinch themselves, for the most part, a 5 seed, while also eliminating NC Greensboro, most likely from NCAA tournament consideration. But with that being said, show must go on. So for March 12th, the selection that we have for you today is actually in the Sun Belt Conference Tournament, which is officially kicking off today. And we like the underdog between Appalachian State and UL Monroe. Appalachian State is getting 8 points, and we think there is a tremendous amount of value on that selection. Now, just to set the scene, the game will be played in UL Monroe, and UL Monroe has had a very solid home court this season. And however, they have been a lot better straight up than they have been ATS, which is something to keep in mind. While Appalachian State has been awful on the road in terms of straight up victories and losses, but they have been extremely profitable ATS on the road, which is why we like Appalachian State in this game. To summarize both teams' regular seasons, Appalachian State is currently 11-20, and they are 6-12 in conference play, while UL Monroe is 16-14 with a 9-9 conference record. Now, I know that those records might seem lopsided, but we'll explain that in a minute. But before I go in some depth, we're going to talk about some of the trends that support Appalachian State in this matchup. So Appalachian State is 4-0 ATS in their last 4 road games versus a team with a home winning percentage greater than 60%. The Appalachian State Mountaineers are also 5-1 in their last 6 road games ATS. They're also 5-1 ATS in their last 6 road games versus a team with a winning home record, and they are 4-1 ATS in their last 5 Tuesday games. Meanwhile, UL Monroe is 1-4 ATS in their last 5 games overall, and have not looked good down the stretch, as they had an outside shot at potentially winning the Sun Belt in the beginning of the season, but that completely fell flat. Now, as a general, there's some trends involving the overall series between these teams, where the underdog is actually 5-0 ATS in the last 5 meetings, and the road team is 4-0 ATS in the last 4 meetings. Now, we're to transition from that, we're going to talk about the 2 matchups that they had in the regular season, as this will be the 3rd time these teams are playing against each other. They split both meetings the regular season, with the home team winning both. Appalachian State won at home in a very close game, which was decided by 1 point. But UL Monroe was able to win by 6 at home in the matchup where they ended up getting revenge. It is important to mention that that game did happen a little while ago, as it happened on February 28th, and Appalachian State played at UL Monroe and only lost by 6, but now we're getting 8 points in this game. It's important to note that both teams are relatively similar stylistically, in the sense that they both thrive heavily on their offense and play virtually no defense. Although Appalachian State's defense is about 5 points worse statistically than UL Monroe's, they're both in the mid to high 70s, so they're both of them love to get on a run, love to play transition, and they both don't really care much about defense. This game could turn into a track meet, and it should probably turn into a track meet, and this game could end up having roughly 170 points in it. But Based on the conference tournament, we decided to stay away from the over and under because of the fact that some teams might come out relatively tight, and they might come out a little bit conservative, trying not to ruin their chances in a winner-take-all game. So we think that Appalachian State is the safer play amongst those. Both teams are scoring more than 78.2 points per game this season. As we said before, they both have very solid offenses. But it is important to note that UL Monroe is extremely volatile on offense because of the fact that they, similar to what the NBA has turned into, they follow a live and die by the three motto, where the team has scored 37.9% of their total points this season from the three-point line, which is the 45th most in the country. And the reason why that's important is because the last matchup that we said, where Appalachian State lost by 6 on the road at UL Monroe, in that same game, UL Monroe hit 11 three-pointers, and they shot 57.9% from the three-point line, yet they only won by 6. So UL Monroe, for a team that relies heavily on scoring from their total points coming from three-pointers, they managed to shoot roughly 58% from the three-point line, and you automatically assume that they're going to win that game by double digits. You think that Appalachian State has no chance, that UL Monroe probably dropped 90, and that it was a wrap. However, Appalachian State held tough, and they only lost by 6, which makes me believe that if UL Monroe shoots any worse from the three-point line, if they shoot around 40% or so, which is basically what the average is, at least for a great three-point shooting team like UL Monroe, if they shoot around 40-41%, I got to assume Appalachian State's going to cover this number with relative ease, and I think that is going to happen because to expect a team, no matter how good they are at shooting three-pointers, to shoot over 50% from the three-point line is almost absurd. And I think that Appalachian State, both games were decided by 6 or fewer points. I think 8's too many points. I think there's too much value on Appalachian State in this one. And it is important to mention that I would provide you with another pick potentially, particularly in the Wright State and Northern Kentucky game. But as of right now, that line is not up yet. So I will be unable to provide you with that. But I'll tell you right now, I don't know what the line's going to be, but a small lean to the under in that one, based on the fact that both teams have played extremely solid defense in the last game. Wright State is completely content with sucking the air out of the ball. And based on how the fact that both teams need to win in order to get into the NCAA tournament, I expect that game to be very conservative. But your main play, which hopefully brings our record on this program to 5-1 overall, is going to be Appalachian State +8. It has gone down so far to 7.5 in most spots, but there are some 8s available for the time being. I expect this line to close somewhere around 7 or 6.5, based on the fact that both these teams have played extremely close throughout the entire season. So overall, our play is going to be on Appalachian State +8 to do just enough to hang around with UL Monroe in the first round of the Sun Belt Conference Tournament. But that's going to do it for this installment of Scott Selections for March 12th. And we all hope that you have a very profitable Tuesday. So having said that, have a good day, everybody.